What is going on, you guys? Average Bob here, and in today's video I want to touch on the very electric career of Odell Beckham Jr. More recently on social media there's been a lot of chatter between OBJ reuniting with Big Blue, and for us Giants fans it's an emotionally charged subject, whether you want him back or you don't, and your reasons for that. It's either hell yeah, let's bring him back, of course, why wouldn't we? We need him, our wide receivers are terrible. He can't come back, he was such a problem in the locker room, such a head case on and off the field. We didn't win any games with him anyway, so why would we want to bring him back now? Wherever you land on this spectrum, I'm hoping I could add some clarity by deep diving into Odell's career before, during, and after his time with the Giants, and why it makes sense for a potential reunion at this point in time. So with that, let's dive into it. Odell Beckham Jr. was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He attended Newman in New Orleans, where he was a letterman in football, basketball, and track. On the football team, he played wide receiver, quarterback, running back, and cornerback. As a senior, he hauled in 50 catches for over 1,000 yards and 19 touchdowns. Pretty insane high school stats any way you look at it. He had his first foray into the Manning family as he attended the same high school as Cooper, Peyton, and Eli. Odell would join Cooper Manning as the only two players in school history to record 1,000 receiving yards in a season, already appearing on the Manning's radar. Regarded as a 4-star recruit by both Rivals and Scout.com, Beckham was rated as the number 6 wide receiver in high school that year and the number 40 player in the nation. He chose to attend LSU over Ole Miss, Nebraska, Tulane, Tulsa, among others. At LSU, Beckham had a great career. Even in his freshman year, he started in the 2012 BCS National Championship game. He went on to have a very solid career on a pretty stacked LSU team over his tenure there that included Lael Collins, Jeremy Hill, Alfred Blue, and someone who would become one of his best friends in Jarvis Landry. More to come on him a little later on. He also would be the beginning of some highlight reel catches. He was first-team All-American and first-team All-SEC in 2013, playing in over 40 games over his tenure at LSU, scoring 12 total touchdowns. During the NFL Combine, he was able to showcase his speed, running a 4.3 40, and also showcase his catching ability during the drills. The Giants selected OBJ in the 2014 NFL Draft with the 12th overall pick. When the Giants drafted Odell, my ignorant first thought as a Giants fan was, we just drafted another LSU wide receiver 2 years prior in Ruben Randall. How ignorant of a thought was that? Regardless, this was a great pick at 12 as it added much needed explosiveness for an aging Eli Manning's offense. Odell would miss the first 4 games of the season, then make his debut versus the Falcons where he recorded 4 catches for 44 yards and a touchdown. He proved immediately he was a game-breaking explosive wide receiver that the Giants felt would complement Victor Cruz. Unfortunately, Victor Cruz would suffer a season-ending injury and miss all of 2015, trying to make his comeback. During Week 12 of his first season, Beckham guarded national attention during a primetime Sunday night NFL matchup versus the Dallas Cowboys. He made one of the greatest catches in NFL history while he was being interfered with. When this happened, I shot off my couch in disbelief. How did he catch it? How is that possible as he was being dragged down, one-handed? The Giants fan in me has to still bring up that the Giants lost this game in a season that they did finish 6-10. Beckham became the first player to record more than 75 receptions and over 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns in his rookie season, and broke the rookie record for averaging most yards per game. Beckham became the first player to record more than 75 receptions, 1,100 receiving yards, and 10 touchdowns in a rookie season, broke the record for most average receiving yards per game. In 2015, the Giants would have another down year and go 6-10. I do want to touch on one highlight of Odell's amazing playmaking ability, mainly because I was at the game and I witnessed it with my own 2 eyes. He has a great toe drag catch that seemed almost impossible, but what can't this guy do based off everything we've seen thus far from him in his career? And then also he has the game-winning touchdown on an 84-yard pass from Eli. There was also the crazy insane game versus the Panthers where Odell fought Josh Norman. Seemingly it felt like the entire game. Feel free to watch the highlights of that game because it was actually insane. Pretty insane that neither guy actually got kicked out of this game just based on the interactions between both players. The Giants mounted an insane comeback and still fell short, losing 38-35, and Odell would be suspended for the next game. This game did showcase Odell's resiliency to never give up in any situation, regardless of the context of the game. As the season ended with the Giants at 6-10, this unfortunately led to the end of the tenure of the great Tom Coughlin as he would be forced to resign. Tom Coughlin leaving on a sour note to the transition of Ben McAdoo could be a video for another day, but we'll touch on that later on. In 2015, Odell finished with 1,450 receiving yards and 13 touchdowns in yet another Pro Bowl season. Transitioning to the 2016 season with new coach Ben McAdoo at the helm, the Giants bolstered their defense and really opened up the checkbook to the tune of $106.3 million, bringing in free agents such as Olivier Vernon, Damon Snacks Harrison, and the Jackrabbit Janoris Jenkins. The Giants meant business, and so did Odell Beckham Jr., who went off for 101 receptions, 1,367 receiving yards, and 10 touchdowns that year alone. There were some trials and tribulations throughout the season, as Odell had an ongoing feud with the kicking net, but eventually made up for it. The great season did end in horrific fashion, as the Giants would get smoked by Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, falling 38-13 in the playoffs. The Giants really didn't do much of anything in this game. Odell had an early drop, and it turned into a rout. Obviously, after this game, the Giants were under heavy scrutiny and turmoil from the infamous boat picture. This picture was snapped a week before the Giants-Packers game, and it would begin a new dark age in Giants history. At this point up into Odell's career, he was always heavily compared to the great Jerry Rice. I mean, can we stop for a minute and just show the stat line of Jerry Rice's career? It's literally insane. He played till he was 42 years old. Got to give us some respect and a shout out to the GOAT here, as who the hell will ever be able to accomplish something like this again? 2017 was not a great year for the Giants, as there were lingering effects caused by the boat picture. They would steeply fall off from any success they had in 2016. The Giants did bring in veteran wide receiver Brandon Marshall as another wide receiver who had great success the previous seasons with the Jets. Giants fans were happy to have another weapon alongside newly drafted Evan Ingram. You can watch my other video on Evan Ingram for a breakdown on his Giants career. Maybe save that for another day. But anyway, with these additions, the Giants had to have a better season, right? Nope. Odell ended up breaking his leg in week 4. This was a disaster of a season where eventually Eli Manning lost his Iron Man streak and was replaced by Geno Smith. The Giants finished 3-13. Ben McAdoo was fired in the middle of the season. The Giants also went 1-11 against the NFC in 2017 and 1-5 against the NFC East. With Ben McAdoo gone, Jerry Reese was also fired, leading to the hirement of David Gettleman. Coming from a somewhat successful tenure with the Panthers that led to Cam Newton's MVP run in 2015 along with a Super Bowl appearance. With Ben McAdoo gone, the Giants selected Pat Shurmur as their next head coach, who also wasn't very successful as the Giants went 5-11. They did select Saquon Barkley with the second overall pick, who did go on to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, and Dave Gettleman did add what he thought to be a much-needed protection up front by making Nate Solder one of the highest-paid linemen in the NFL. Right now, it's probably arguably one of the worst Giants signings, likely soon to be replaced by Kenny Golladay, who only played 2 snaps last week. There was writing on the wall during the 2018 season that Odell was disgruntled and he wanted out, and trade rumors were flying. I was actually on my honeymoon when Odell did the Lil Wayne interview, and my first thought was, oh, I didn't realize Odell was doing Saturday Night Live this week. And then based on how much fun everyone was making fun of the Giants, I realized that this sit-down interview did occur, with the main sentiment and takeaway being that Odell wasn't given an opportunity to be the very best that he could. So one thing was clear from this interview, that Odell wanted out and was doing all the things that he could to do so. In August of 2018, Odell signed a 5-year, $95 million contract extension with the Giants, with $41 million fully guaranteed. Giants GM Dave Gettleman previously stated that they did not sign Odell to trade him. The Giants traded Odell the following season in March of 2019. Beckham was acquired by the Cleveland Browns along with Olivier Vernon in exchange for Jabril Peppers, Kevin Zeitler, and the Browns' first and third round picks in the 2019 NFL Draft. The Giants went on to have Jabril Peppers start for a few years before he most recently signed with the Patriots this previous offseason. Dexter Lawrence had a great Giants career to start, being named captain, and more importantly, he's played in 16 games a year, so adding some much-needed availability up on the defensive front. And lastly, the Giants selected O'Shane Ximines, who didn't really do all too much in his Giant tenure up until recently with a few key injuries at the edge rusher position. As much as I want to say someone won or lost a trade, I don't really think there was a clear winner here. Maybe the Browns lost it based on what they gave up, but more to come on that. Odell would finish his final season with the Giants playing in 12 games for over 1,000 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. Odell's final stats with the Giants were 390 receptions for 5,476 yards and 44 touchdowns, 74 rushing yards, 343 return yards, and 106 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns. In 2019, the Giants would go 4-12, Pat Shurmur would be fired, and newly drafted Duke quarterback Daniel Jones would make his debut, replacing Eli Manning. The 2019 Cleveland Browns led to a reunion between longtime friend and LSU teammate Jarvis Landry. With the first overall pick in Baker Mayfield, there were high expectations for the Browns. Unfortunately, they did not live up to this, and Odell went 6-10, had a good season going into year 2 by going 11-5 under coach Kevin Stefanski. Beckham finished the 2020 season with 23 catches for 319 yards and 3 touchdowns, as he did end up tearing his ACL this season. Maybe Browns fans thought of this addition by subtraction, as it did lead to their first playoff appearance since 2002. In his third season with the Browns, things really went off the rails with Odell pretty early on. After being excused from 2 practices earlier, followed by an outrage on social media by Beckham's father over the way Beckham was being used in the Browns offense, the Browns waived Odell on November 8th. And then Odell would eventually sign with the Rams, having a very successful run with them alongside Cooper Kupp. And Odell would help them go on to make a great playoff run, culminating in a Super Bowl win over the Bengals. Going into this game, I was a little conflicted, seeing someone that I used to love now playing in a Super Bowl. Your boy had to take Odell to win MVP, and he did help himself very well and the Rams by scoring the first touchdown in Super Bowl 56. Unfortunately, he did suffer a torn ACL in the second quarter, but it didn't take away from the fact that Odell was now a Super Bowl champion. Regardless of your thoughts and where you stand on OBJ, there's one thing that's undeniable. He's absolutely electric both on and off the field. His teammates have gone on the record time and time again stating how much they love him. Where us Giants fans need to be more concerned is play on the field that helps us win games. Now the Giants are building a new culture in locker room with Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. But is a 29-year-old Beckham coming off an ACL injury something they might want to take a gamble on at this point in time? And I have full trust in Daboll and Schoen to make the right decision here. What I love most about Odell is, at the end of the day, he's unapologetically himself, like him or not. The good parts and the bad. But I hope in his age, post-Super Bowl champion, there's a more mature version of himself. Although he did tear his ACL in the Super Bowl back in February, and right now it being almost late September, might not make the most time from a recovery standpoint, as it's only really been, give or take 7 months. But again, he's a freak NFL talent, and we've seen guys come back faster from injury quicker than this. I'm not sure what he would demand from a contract perspective to actually come back to Big Blue, but whatever it's worth, it could be worth considering just due to the current play of our current wide receiver. They're injury prone, they have zero explosive ability, and some of them aren't even touching the field anymore. My final point is, during Odell's time on the Giants, they were a fun team because of him, and they didn't lose games directly because of him. So what do you guys think? Does it make sense to try and bring him back at this point if he is fully healthy and ready to play in the NFL again? I personally think it's a smart move to wait another 2 months for him to see if there's a team that's desperately thin at wide receiver, likely in the playoff hunt, maybe the Packers, or back to the Rams. If you guys like this video, please let me know. I did another one similar in this format about Evan Ingram, so I hope this one's way better than the last one. Anyway, thank you so much for your time and watching this video, and let's go Giants.